Hey folks, welcome to the Send Time Optimization Messaging Workshop. I just realized that is quite a mouthful, but we're going to be talking about all things optimizing send time based on user behaviors, based on when your customers actually want to receive a message. So folks in the audience, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Cody. I'm on the marketing team here at Customerio, joined by Nuno Souza, who is a former fintech VP of engineering, and he's now at Customerio, and he's going to be kind of running us through some of the demo or use case portion of this event, if you will. But really excited to kind of in today's event go beyond just tracking like when are users opening messages and really get into more of when are users actually converting or taking the actions that you want them to take, whatever your process or your product or service might be. So folks in the audience, thank you so much for joining us wherever you are in the world. Hope you got a cup of coffee or cup of tea handy. And we're going to get into this conversation here in just a minute. So first off, as always, we want to hear from you in the audience. So I'm going to publish this poll. It's going to pop up on your screen. But we want to know, heading into this topic, what is currently the biggest challenge or area of opportunity for you in your current send time optimization processes? So is it analyzing or understanding what your user behaviors are right now? Is it setting up messaging to actually trigger and send at those specific times? Or is it kind of trusting the data? Are you, maybe trying to go beyond email open rates or something like that to find out when the best time is? Or if you're kind of new to this, or if you aren't really doing much optimizing but looking to level that up, let us know as well there in the poll. Okay, while those responses come in, I think just to kind of preface this topic, I think I'm guilty of going down the rabbit hole of Google searching what's the best send time for XYZ, or what's the best send time in this scenario. And you can easily get hooked on one of those blog posts that says, oh, studies have shown Tuesday at 8:45 a.m. is across the board the best time to send a message. And then, or maybe it's 7:45 p.m. if you're in this industry is the best time on a Saturday. I was going to say, then you look over and see your coworker or your partner cleaning out their email inbox at that exact time, and you realize, oh, those opens that are registering at that time might not be indicative of somebody actually engaging with my messaging or engaging with my product. So today's event, we're kind of going to get out of that mindset of trusting every blog post that's out there that has found the magic potion to what the perfect send time, and get more into a thoughtful approach that kind of is custom to each user that you're engaging. Okay, looks like our poll, the biggest topic to focus on is analyzing or understanding user habits. Perfect. That's what we're going to get into today. So without further ado, I'll kick us off. Looks like folks are joining. But if you haven't been on one of these events before, we're with Customerio. If you haven't used Customerio before, we're a cross-channel customer engagement platform. And essentially what that means is you can bring in any kind of messaging or data workflow into one place. So all of your newsletters, your drip campaigns, your lead nurture, all of your product triggered messaging across email, push, SMS. You can do a lot with in-app messages as well. You can bring that all into Customerio, manage it in one place, manage the data in one place. That's kind of usually how people start, but you can also do a lot with data workflows and data automations, which Nuno is going to kind of show a couple highlights into that as well as we get in here today. But sometimes this even means that folks are able to replace some of the stuff they're doing in Zapier. So if you're updating a CRM record when something happens, or you're updating something in your help desk when something happens, you can run a lot of those kind of data automations in Customer as well. So we don't need to spend much time on this slide because Nuno is actually going to be showing us how to do these send time optimization processes inside of Customerio's Visual Workflow Builder. But this is kind of where the magic happens. You're dragging and dropping all of those messaging actions or data actions and creating whatever messaging or data workflow that you want. So that's just some quick context on us. Without further ado, I want to more formally introduce Nuno Souza. He is a developer enablement engineer here at Customerio. Nuno, thanks so much for joining us on this event. Talk to us a little bit about kind of your background and also background with messaging automation.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Cody. So yeah, my background, I worked at Uphold before joining Customerio, and I started Uphold pretty much as a founding engineer, one of five. And so I saw that company grow from 0 employees to about 300 and over 10 million users. So as you can imagine, I had to deal with a lot of these marketing initiatives, sometimes implementing them, sometimes helping debug them. And yeah, we did a lot of fun stuff, especially around send time optimization as well. We found that, you know, even the simplest type of send time optimization, which I would consider to be, you know, sending an email when the person's awake, maybe waiting until it's like 10 a.m. for them, or 11 a.m. or whatever it is. Even that alone is very powerful and often forgotten. And you'll find people getting emails at 5 a.m., which will be, you know, either marked as spam or archived early in the morning when the user gets to their email. So yeah, today we have a fun topic. It's exploring more of these you know, send time optimization techniques. We've got a great example for you, and yeah, I'll save the best for the workflow builder in a few minutes. How's that,
Love
Cody?
it. Yeah, thanks for joining us again, Nuno. And I think what you said right there is like the theme for today's workshop. Like it might even be little things that can make an incremental difference. So we're going to kind of go show one example and then throw some extra scenarios on top of it, so that folks in the audience, hopefully, we cover something that you are interested in, that you are trying to do, and that at least some bite of this that you can take and start implementing today after the workshop. So that being said, definitely use the chat, post questions to us as we go. We're going to take a quick look here at the agenda before we get into it. But yeah, be active in that chat and definitely bring up questions when they're on your mind, or when we cover something that you want to know a little bit deeper about. We want to answer them in the moment. We will have time for Q&A at the end, but it's always a more engaging event if we can speak right to the things that you want to see, and maybe even show a little mock-up as we go. But okay, so where we're going to go today. So we're going to start off with the pizza story. This will have more context behind it here in just a minute, but we'll talk about how kind of a pizza company times these messages well, and kind of the example that led into this topic. And then we'll jump right into the campaign, actually showing you a few examples of how you can build these things out, and some takeaways that you can do after this event's over. So we'll look at data automation side of things, and then also the messaging side, and kind of how they work together. All right, Nuno, while you are pulling up, actually, no, I'm jumping ahead. Let's start with the pizza story. So I think as we were brainstorming ideas for this event, you actually had a real world example where you thought there was a really good use of send time optimization. Talk us through that. What happened, and why were these messages so compelling?
Yeah, so pizza is probably my one of my favorite types of food. I probably eat too much of it, and yeah, I would sometimes get a pizza maybe once a week, or once every couple of weeks, and I started to get you know, SMSs from my local pizza store, just trying to prompt me into getting a pizza, just offering a discount or something like that. And here's an example. So they're in Portuguese, but it's fine. What's important here are the dates. So you can tell from the top left there, there's they sent messages in November, you know, from November through December, and these were always on Saturdays. So that was pretty interesting. But then what triggered it for me was I actually stopped buying pizza from them because the pandemic happened. And I got COVID, the whole family got COVID, and so we had to kind of stop with the contacts, and I started making pizza at home, from scratch. You know, just getting the flour, the tomato sauce, doing everything. Did that for a little while, and then, you know, as things started back up again, we started ordering. We ordered a pizza or two, like over a couple of weeks. And so you can see here that they actually stopped for quite a few days, and then it picked back up again in March, and then in May. If I could show you, if I could scroll through my phone right now, you'll see that from May till now, it's just a constant stream of Friday SMSs. So something happened here that I thought was pretty cool, because this actually converted me into buying a pizza many times, if I'm being honest, because they caught me on Fridays, right at, you know, it's mostly at lunchtime, but sometimes at the end of the day. It's not always the same time. But in many cases, it would be at the end of the day, around 6 p.m. or something. I'm starting to get off work. I'm starting to think about, oh, I'm feeling hungry. What are we gonna have to what do we have to eat? It's Friday. I don't really want to cook, and so many times I would go, oh yeah, pizza. Just look at my phone and follow through. So yeah, it was pretty powerful, and it's telling that I stopped ordering pizza and they stopped sending messages. So something's happening here, even if it is like completely manual and it's a human on the other side clicking. Like they got me pretty good. I'll be honest. So yeah, this is how we ended up talking about this and thought it would be a good topic for this webinar.
Yeah, I love the comment by Amki in the chat saying we can always use love of pizza to find a commonality with an audience. It's definitely true.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you kind of sharing this from a consumer perspective. I think that's always a great way to lead into the actual marketing examples. Like, how does this actually feel as a consumer? So if I'm hearing you right, like you actually liked receiving these messages. I think SMS is something that marketers think about of like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's this invasive channel that, sends a message that might be sitting next to a message from mom or something also, because it's right in this intimate inbox. But if I'm hearing you right, these pizza messages were
Yeah.
actually well received.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be different for everyone, right? I have a low tolerance for emails. Like, I will unsubscribe from mostly everything. SMSs are even the open rate on SMS and the click rate on SMS is huge, right? It's if you get an SMS, you're pretty much guaranteed to look at it at some point. And so I do want to cut down on SMSs, but these ones in particular, because I don't feel like they're bothering me. It's like on Fridays, and many times I do follow through. I ended up just leaving them there. If you notice, it has a phone number at the end. All I have to do is text that phone number, and they'll stop sending SMSs. I haven't done it yet, just because it's been useful. If I felt like they were sending me an SMS at like 9 a.m. or something, like why would I think about pizza at 9 a.m.? Then I would probably turn those off. But no, it's been mostly around around lunchtime, around dinner time. You can tell from the timestamps there. So they're also sending them at mostly the right time when you're starting to think about what to get to eat. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the customer centricity around that. What you just said, folks in the audience who maybe are building out first campaigns or updating existing ones. I think like at the root of this is like the pizza company knows what problem they solve. You not wanting to cook on a Friday night after a long week, and it being simpler to just have your favorite food. So they understand their consumer problem really well, and they're optimizing to that. So, thanks for sharing the pizza story, as we're calling it. Now let's get into kind of actually the campaign, and we'll see kind of a few ways that we can kind of emulate this same pizza example with a different industry use case. But while you're pulling up your screen, folks in the audience, today's company that we're going to use as an example is called Grow Health. So we're imagining this is actually a fake company. So everything you see today will be a fake workspace, no real user data. It's all fake dummy data that's being automatically randomly generated and populated here. But the quick context on this fake company that we're using is Grow Health, and they offer meditations through a web and mobile app. So think of it as that meditation app or that wellness app that you use. All right, Nuno, you've got your screen up here in Customerio. So let's start with at a very simple level. If you're a marketer at this company, Grow Health, what are those like user behaviors or those user actions that you're really trying to drive with today's example, and which data points kind of are you looking at?
Yeah. So for the pizza example, clearly it was what the most interesting event for them is probably when I order a pizza. For Grow Health, we're trying to, as a company, our mission is to get users to meditate every day. So the events here that we're trying to track are centered around those meditations. Maybe these two would be the most important ones, like when you start a meditation, when you complete a meditation. So I'll just mention that this imaginary company, Grow Health, has an app. It allows you to say when you're going to start, and then you could even have like some sort of AI to watch you with a camera and determine when you stop or whatever it is. But essentially, the app itself collects the start and complete events, and they push them out to Customerio.
For folks in the audience who maybe are in e-com and they're trying to drive purchases directly, or maybe they're in like, you know, media or something and trying to get users to stream something, like, is this kind of similar approach of starting out with these key events across the board apply regardless of industry, or what would you say there?
No, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, even in my previous industry, which was fintech, we would send a bunch of events. So, actually, these two, the payment ones, would be similar to what we would send here. If you're a fintech company, for example, probably your most revenue generating event is the most important to you. So it's when somebody makes a purchase, makes a trade, whatever it is. So sending that data in, it's the same concept. It's just figuring out which events are important to your business, which probably usually related to revenue, but not specifically. But yeah, that's the most important part, and probably the hardest part is to first identify what actions you want to engage and encourage users to keep doing.
Cool. So for today's example, we're focusing on meditations. Maybe we could extrapolate that. If somebody's meditating consistently, they're not incentivized to cancel this subscription with Grow Health because they're using the product, they're getting value. So we're kind of looking at meditations as that key action. So talk us through, like, how do we start out by tracking when people actually are wanting to meditate, or when each user, what's each user's best meditation time?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's think about the problem here. We're trying to figure out, we're trying to encourage users to meditate every day. That's what the app is all about, right? So how do we count up, or how do we determine which days are the best days for each user to meditate? Kind of like the pizza example, you really don't want to send out a blast every day, just an untargeted blast, just saying, hey, why don't you try a meditation? Because you might catch them at the wrong time. You might catch them when they're not thinking about meditations, and maybe they're focused on work, and it's really gonna get them angry. So you want to send them kind of like the pizza story, which is when I last purchased the pizza. So that's a good moment to keep track of how many pizzas I've gotten. And in this case, meditations. If I've meditated yesterday, that's something that we want to keep track of on a daily basis, so that after a while we can determine, okay, he meditates 3 times in a row on Mondays. Then most likely that's the best time to send him an SMS to say, hey, you wanna keep the streak going and meditate today? So let's set that up. So we're going to need 2 campaigns for this. The first one would be a sorry about that. I think I have 3 here. There we go. So that first campaign, we first need to keep track of the days that the person is meditating on. So what we'll do is we'll create a campaign with a trigger when a meditation is complete. So every time somebody meditates, this campaign will trigger. And we want it to happen whether you're subscribed or not. We're just counting up the days. We're not going to be sending messages. And there's no goal for this campaign. So this is simply a little helper campaign that'll keep track of those days. So every time somebody meditates, they'll trigger this campaign. And then all we have here is a create or update person block. And if I open it up, there's a little bit of JavaScript, but we don't need to really explore it. All you need to know is that it's pretty much keeping track on the user's attributes. It's keeping track of how many days they've meditated in a row per day of the week. So Thursday 1, maybe you might find that Mondays would have been, or yesterday was Wednesday, so Wednesdays would have been like a 3-week streak. So it'll just add up every time you meditate. So once we have this little cache or tally of days of the week and how many times you meditate, you can then set up a campaign that'll actually send the messages. So that would be this one. So I called it Encourage Meditation Habits. And the trigger for this would be if you've meditated in the past 2 weeks. So if you haven't meditated in the past 2 weeks, we're not going to try to send you a message. Again, we're trying to replicate that pizza example of when you stop, then the messages stop. Otherwise, you might just find that somebody has given up, and you keep sending messages. They're not going to be interested, right? They might even block you, block your phone number, which would be bad, right? You want them to feel like you're giving them useful messages. So a very important bit about this campaign is we needed to trigger again every day. So this campaign, essentially every day we're going to reevaluate whether or not we should send a message. If they've gone over that special point where we decide, hey, yes, today is a Thursday and you've meditated, you've got a 3-week streak going on Thursday, so we want to meditate. So you'll see in a second in the workflow, it'll become clear, but that's an important bit. And so for the settings, we will only want to send messages to subscribed people. So if they've unsubscribed, they will not get these messages. And the goal of this campaign is to perform this event, right? To complete this meditation. So I've set this up as a 12-hour after receiving any delivery. So if we send them an email, an SMS, if we send them an SMS, and within 12 hours they meditate, we will we'll consider that a goal met and a success for this campaign. So here's the workflow editor. So
Nuno, this is actually the campaign too now. This one is actually going to be sending the messages. The other one's working in the background to kind of do the calculations, do the math on which day is the best. This campaign is now using it to actually do that messaging workflow.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's it. You've got it. So the other one, this is the last one, it just adds up the days. Here's an example of what it could look like for each user. On a Monday, you've got 1, Tuesday, you've got 3, and so on. So all it does is keep track of this. And then on our new campaign, if you can imagine, we will trigger when a user has done a meditation in the past 2 weeks, it'll trigger on this campaign every single day. And then we'll check whether or not this is a top meditation day. And again, I used a little bit of JavaScript here, but pretty much what I'm doing here is I'm checking if they have more than a 2-week streak, or actually 2 weeks or more. And that'll return the day here. Otherwise, if today, so today being Thursday, if they don't have more than 2, if they haven't meditated more than 2 Thursdays in a row, you'll get this empty string. And that means if that's the case, if they haven't meditated more than 2 times in a row, it'll just go to the all others and it'll leave. So they will get no communications, no SMSs at all. However, if our little tally tells us that, hey, today is Thursday and they've meditated 3 Thursdays in a row, it'll come into this multi-split branch. And I only did this just to have different copy for each SMS. Otherwise, it would be kind of boring to have the same messaging every single day. So it'll just flow through the Thursday, because today's Thursday. And then we can try to tempt them into maintaining that habit that they've seemingly formed. And you could even, because we're calculating this top meditation day, we're taking this day into account. You could even use it on the copy of the message itself. So here, I can put in a user on this little preview that has this data. So you'll see the message update. There you go. So it could even be a little bit more personal to say, hey, you've logged the meditation 3 Thursdays in a row. So I find that to be it may cross that threshold of being kind of a little bit creepy in the sense that, hey, they're watching me do something, but I personally find that it's still acceptable, that it's a little bit of personalization that goes beyond just saying hi Nuno, just putting your name or something. So yeah, that's how this is set up. There's a little bit of JavaScript there, but it also shows you the power of Customerio. You can use JavaScript, you can use Liquid, but it still comes out to be a simple campaign, and hopefully will encourage users to meditate on these days. So it just keeps track of that day of the week.
Yeah, for folks in the audience, thanks for walking through that, Nuno. For folks in the audience who see JavaScript and get a little nervous, like I do, don't worry. If you're already a customer, that's something you can bring up with your customer success manager. We're happy to share this example afterwards, if you want this exact snippet. But really, once you get those little snippets doing those calculations set up, like Nuno said, after that, this campaign is running on its own, is automated, not something that you're having to go into the JavaScript and update frequently. To kind of get it set up the right way first, and then you can kind of let it run in the background. Sophie has a question in the chat that we're going to get to in just a minute, but Nuno, one follow-up question here. What if somebody has multiple days that are their top meditation days? Maybe somebody, their kids are at daycare on Tuesday afternoons and Thursday afternoons, and so both of those days are top meditation days. How does this system apply if somebody has multiple days?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So because we've configured this campaign back here to trigger again every single day and to reevaluate these conditions every single day, what's going to happen here, the way it's set up right now, is that if you have a 3-week streak going on Tuesday, and you also have, like, I don't know, a 5-week streak on Fridays, it'll trigger both in this particular scenario. So they would trigger here on Tuesday. It would come out as more than 2, yes, and then it would go to Tuesday, and then on Friday it would come out as more than 2, and it would go to Friday. So we actually want that for our example for Grow Health. It makes sense. Like if we could get users to meditate every single day, that'd be perfect. Maybe it doesn't make sense for other scenarios. So for pizza, certainly not. Two pizzas a week is too much. So it really depends on the use case there.
2 pizzas a month is too much for some people, not all people. I could sometimes do too. Yeah. Plenty. Sure. I kid, but okay, that's helpful. And then I'm curious, like, what if somebody has already, or actually before we get to that scenario, how did you pick 2? Like, what if somebody is actually like, just because someone does something 2 times in my app, I'm not really looking at that as like a habit yet. It needs to be higher, like 5 or 6 times on a certain day. How did you pick 2, and how is that adjustable?
Yeah, so right now that's a little, oops, that's just a number here that we can adjust, and so it's easily changed. And we could even personalize this to the user themselves. We could say some users you could store an attribute on the user, so that some users maybe are in a different group, a different cohort in your business, and so they get more frequent emails, messaging, sorry, or you may even want to control that suggestion you were saying before, that in this case we're triggering more than 1 SMS a week, but you may want to actually control for that and say, actually no, for our business it doesn't make sense. Maybe if you're Apple and you're trying to sell computers, somebody bought a computer from you on a Tuesday, you don't want to try to tempt them on the next Tuesday saying, hey, do you want to buy a new computer? It doesn't make sense, right? So or within the same week even. And so that's of course possible. Everything is possible with Customerio. And but yeah, that's possible. We could definitely have a little if branch here. So I could add here as an example. We could add a little if branch here to say, if they've meditated this week, exit. So something like that. And we could just add an event that says if they've performed, or sorry, a segment, have completed meditation. We could create a segment that says if they meditated this week, I don't have one set up, but if they've meditated this week already, exit. Or if they haven't meditated this week, it would be exit because I put everything on the true branch. But yeah, that's also possible. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's pretty easy to set up as well.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. The couple questions in the question box there on the side. So, Sophie, I'm going to start with the first one there. So, Nuno, Sophie asks, how would you expand this to time of day, morning versus afternoons, or a specific time? I know kind of our first example here, we're just showing kind of how you can determine the best day of the week, but what are some options for kind of like that time of day sending?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely go crazy with this and even go up to the minute or up to the second if you wanted. An example is coming here to this campaign that keeps track. So this is the one that'll keep track of all of that. So you would have to change this little bit of JavaScript to maybe keep track of whether it's afternoon or not. So I'm just going to make it up here. Probably not gonna get it right now, but just as an example, we would have to calculate. This would be a variable instead of being static right now, but just as an example is of how it looks coming out of the attribute. You could say, in the afternoon on Thursdays would have been 1, and you could add those up. So all you have to do is really in JavaScript calculate whether it's until noon or afternoon, and yeah, it's absolutely possible.
Awesome. And then we also have some options too, like inside the campaign with time zone windows. So adapting stuff to users' time zones as well. So that's also something you can kind of layer on top of this. Again, like Nuno said, you can kind of get as wild as you want using the that background campaign to add some of this up. But if you have done some testing and determine, that there are some times where it seems like you do get more engagement, you can layer that on top of the day of the week here.
Yeah, and you could even do it separately per each day, or just set it up over here in the case that you want it to be the same for each user. But you can definitely, you wouldn't want to send messages, even these meditation ones, maybe you wouldn't want to send them at 5 a.m. Well, although there could be somebody meditating at 5 a.m. But let's say for the purpose of the example, you actually want to send them at a very specific time in the user's time zone. So maybe at 9 a.m., between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. in the user's time zone, so that they're not getting these messages, and I'll fall back to UTC, so that they're not getting these messages, at 5 a.m. Even though they may have meditated at 5 a.m. last week, with this time window, it'll ensure that they'll get this SMS between 9 and 11.
Yeah, thanks for walking through that. The other one, we have another question from Dev, but I want to get to Sophie's previous question too here before we get to that one. So the scenario to throw at you here is, how do you pause this or keep users from entering this campaign if, for example, like you said, during the pandemic, you actually switched to making pizzas at home for a bit. And so the pizza company paused those messages to you during that time where you weren't showing that habit was something you were actively doing, and then started them back up again when you started ordering pizzas again. So how would you kind of apply that same pausing mechanism to this campaign?
Yeah, great question. So it's simply the way that the campaign is set up. So because we've set a goal that I have to meditate in order to hit the goal, sorry, it's over here. I've also set up that you exit the campaign if you stop matching the trigger, or it's actually this one, sorry, and you achieve the goal, sorry. So if I meditate then I've achieved the goal. Or if I stop meditating, what will happen is I no longer, I'm just going to discard, okay. If I stop meditating for 2 weeks, I no longer match this trigger, and so I'm exited from the campaign automatically. Now you could still set up, let's say you want to try, one last time, they've stopped meditating for 2 weeks in a row, but one last time you want to give it a shot. So what you could do is set up a new campaign, which I have here. I called it re-engagement. And so the trigger condition is they have meditated at least once ever, but not in the past 2 weeks. So essentially they've dropped off, right? They stopped meditating. We could set this up so that if they're subscribed, the goal is the same, is we want them to meditate. We want them to complete a meditation. And essentially, this is a very simple campaign where if you match these conditions, you've stopped meditating, we send you one SMS that says, hey, don't give up. We haven't seen you in a while. Why not try again? And then maybe we even wait a couple of days just to see if he's interested, and then try one last time. And I even used, let me find that email again to put in the preview over here. I even used, again, that attribute, the top meditation day that our little campaign is actively calculating, to try to get them back with a little bit of personalization, saying, hey, why don't you get back into your Thursday rhythms? So yeah, in case somebody does re-engage, so let's say we sent them this don't give up SMS, and they're now waiting on this time delay, right? But let's say it worked, right? They meditated, they actually submitted a meditation. So they will exit this automatically via the settings. So because they've achieved the goal of meditating, they will exit the campaign as well. So that's how this flows into, you stop meditating, you get this re-engagement campaign, you start back up again, you start getting those regular meditations in the right day, hopefully at the right time.
Yeah, and I think this could be applied to if you have that re-engagement segment that happens right after they fall out of the group. But Nuno, for folks who maybe have like a longer term buying cycle, or somebody in SaaS who maybe this is actually something that happens every few months or something, like it's just a longer scenario. So let's say if this re-engagement segment is like 5 months after somebody has left a product or stopped using a product, how long would you say that keeping that, in this case, meditation data on what their top meditation day is, but just to generalize it, the kind of best day to send a message, how long would you say that is still good? I'm wondering if your family had actually changed to wanting pizzas on a Wednesday because you had some shifts in your life or something after a year, maybe there's a new day. How long should somebody keep kind of this as the place of truth for the best day for someone versus like scrub the data and start fresh when their next interaction happens?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I guess I didn't cover that, but when you stop matching this campaign, so if you stop meditating for more than 2 weeks, notice that I'm not cleaning up these attributes on the user. The top meditation day will still be there. If you had, let's say, a 20-week streak going, and then you suddenly stop, we're still keeping that around, tied to the user. So if you do re-engage again after that whatever pause it was, right now the way this is set up for Grow Health is that cache will still be there. So the next week we're going to try sending you a communication based on that 20-week streak day, whatever it was. But you could change that. So for Grow Health, I think it probably makes sense. Maybe you're getting back into meditation, and so our hypothesis may be that you actually want to get that habit going in the same timing. But maybe, like you say, it doesn't make sense for everyone. So that is certainly possible to do. So here, an example would be on this re-engagement campaign. So once we send these two SMSs and they don't meditate, that means we can simply put a creator update person here as the last step, and just add the top meditation day and remove this attribute. And we could also clean up the meditation days little cache, the tally of the days. And yeah, this would make it so that if you did give up and even our last two SMSs weren't enough to tempt you and you gave up, then yes, clean up that cache so that the next time if you do hopefully come back, you'll be reset and you'll start from zero.
Yeah, and just for some added context on different industry examples too, this isn't exactly send time optimization, but like on Customerio, we're a SaaS company, and we actually use workflows like this to, for example, if you're somebody who requests a demo on our tool and we want to assign a sales rep, we can kind of use this data workflow to say, here, assign this sales rep, to be your point of contact. And then same thing, like maybe 6 months later, let's say you didn't decide to go with Customerio, but maybe we have you in a re-engagement campaign where we're reaching back out and maybe we're referencing that sales rep or your point of contact, your account manager's name from the past. We can still have that attribute on the profile, and we can still use that in the message to say, hey, you want to talk to so-and-so again. But maybe you're actually saying after 6 months, maybe you don't actually have that relationship with that exact person. Maybe next time you come back to take a look at Customerio, we can put you back and reassign you to somebody. So we could use that scrub action to, remove an account manager or remove some other piece of data when it's kind of like expired or is no longer as relevant. And then, of course, reassign it when you come back in and take that action. So I think those are the kind of things that, depending on which industry you're in and what your use case is, you can kind of control how often you want to scrub that data, if it's really quick after somebody stops doing something, or if you want to let it linger there longer and maybe use it in the future as a re-engagement point, as Nuno's kind of talking about here as well.
Yeah. One other example that comes to mind could be something that's for Grow Health. We want daily activity, but maybe if you're a company, maybe you do travel arrangements or you sell flights or something. Could be really interesting to think about longer periods of time, right? So as a travel company, maybe you might sell to the same person once a flight, once or twice a year when they go on vacation or something. And maybe between April and May would probably be a good time to send a communication, because they're probably thinking of setting up their vacations for June or July, right? In that case, you might not have data. We talked about sending events in order to kick off these campaigns. In our case, it's whenever somebody meditates, right? But in the case of somebody thinking of buying a flight, you might not have past data. What you could do there is send in events to Customerio that represent what the user is engaged with on your platform. So let's say maybe they're searching for flights, and you find that they're searching for lots of flights on during the months of April and May. Then I would recommend probably sending a communication right there and then in April and May, because they're interested, they're engaged. That's when they're most likely to see and appreciate your messages. If you try sending a message trying to sell them a flight, let's say in October, they're probably going to ignore it and say, I'm not going on vacation now. Why am I getting this, right? So timing is everything. And especially if you tie the timing with the engagement of the user with the platform. So not just sending out a blast to all of your users in April to say, hey, buy a flight, but actually sending them, if they're logging into your platform, they're searching for flights, then yes, that's somebody who's much more likely to take that communication and follow through.
Yeah, that's a great example to call out in travel. Kind of playing off that with Dev's question here in the question section. So Dev asks, could I use something like this to figure out the best time to send emails based on past email opens for every user? Nuno, do you have any comments there? And also, I guess kind of one thing we could tack on to this too is um, talking about email opens and how you can base things around that, but then going a step deeper, like how can you base it off of other events that maybe you're tracking, or maybe you're wanting to wait until something happens. So start with the first part of that question, but I think there might be a follow up there too as well.
Yeah, definitely. So you could definitely do that, and there are other platforms that actually automate that in various ways. And Customerio will get you the open rates and the open events and the click events even, and so that's definitely possible. It all comes down to your use case and the business you're operating. So if I'll give you an example for the pizza one. Maybe I'm a person that I clean up my email inbox very early in the morning. Let's say 9 a.m. I clean up my email inbox. In this example, we're thinking of emails. So if I was to get an email trying to get me into buying a pizza based on open rates, they would choose the wrong time. They would be sending them at around 9 a.m., which is when I'm mostly opening lots of emails and reading them and archiving them and whatnot. Whereas, for pizza, it makes sense that you want to send it when somebody's stomach is growling and they're thinking of getting something to eat. So it depends on the use case. There certainly could be use cases where open rates are the event to track for pizza, and I think meditations as well for grow health. I think it makes sense when the person has last meditated. But yeah, depends on the use case.
Awesome. And then Hannah asks, are you planning to add the possibility of A/B test based on sending time, A/B testing on that sending time in the broadcast mode? I actually don't know for sure, Hannah. I can follow up there. Nuno, do you have any insight on that functionality being added to broadcasts?
I don't really. I mean, you could set it up in this campaign by doing a random cohort branch. And so maybe some of them will receive it. Sorry about that, cancel. Some of them will receive it at a certain time, like this. 73% of the users will receive it at this time. And then the others would receive some other time that we could set up. I could even duplicate this. And yeah, and it could branch back into this the same branch of the meditation. So you could definitely set up some pathways so that some of your users will receive at different times, and then measure that difference. Does that answer the question?
Hopefully so. Yeah, thanks for the question, Hannah. Yeah, maybe a functionality that's being added. And for folks who aren't Customerio users, broadcast is kind of our one-off newsletter sending area. So right now we're in kind of more of the automated campaigns that maybe you have on flowing all the time. But if you want to send those one-offs, broadcasts is where that stuff is happening.
Yeah, this would be the section for broadcasts, and I think you can't do that there. I think that's right. But if you can possibly use a campaign workflow, then yes, it's possible.
Amazing. Well, Nuno, we have about 10 minutes left. So kind of going to move us more into the formal Q&A portion of the event, which audience members, thank you so much for bringing questions as we've gone through this. But, and actually on that call out too, a couple new things that we released that I just wanted to highlight recently was we also have our preference center is now live. So our subscription preferences. So you can now organize users based on different subscriptions. So maybe you have meditators, and then you have people who are, doing actual therapy sessions, and maybe those are two different audiences. You can have people subscribe to those different lists and manage them all within Customerio. So, and then the other one is now data objects is something that we went live with relatively recently as well. This one, if you've ever struggled with, having this kind of hierarchical relational data inside of a marketing platform, maybe you have Nuno and I are both individual contacts, but we both work for Customerio, which is a company. So we're still under this kind of account and then contact within the account hierarchy. That's something that we released features on recently there, and should be a lot easier to manage now inside the platform. So if either of those things are of interest to you, we're happy to demo those for you. Okay, so we have 8 minutes left. We're happy to answer any other questions that folks have. So go ahead and post those in the questions or in the chat. Dev commented, would love to see a webinar on data objects and use cases. Definitely noted. I think that's one that I'm excited to jump more into as well. Just as an email marketer myself, having to kind of figure out how to do segmentation sometimes around people within a category, or this is also relevant in the ed tech space when you have students within a course, or maybe students that are within several courses, and you want to kind of send a message that's based on one of those courses or a couple of those courses and encompass any student who matches that higher level thing that they're part of. So you can get into some fun use cases there. Nuno, do you have any thoughts or things on objects, or have you had any experience with modeling data in that way?
No, I didn't end up using it back when I had to build lots of campaigns, but I did remember one specific time where I even sent an email to our customer success manager asking for this feature. I didn't know what to call it back then, but I did ask for a feature like that. And it was pretty much, we needed to send an email or an action in the system, in the platform. We wanted it to trigger an email to every admin. And that wasn't really something that you could easily do with Customerio. Whereas if you had like a collection let's say objects of admins, a list of those admins, everybody would just get that campaign. That would have been a real time saver. We ended up having to send one event per admin in order to do the same thing. Whereas we really just wanted to send one event, which caused, maybe 10
everybody underneath that hierarchy. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It would have been super useful there. I was early to that, but yeah, absolutely. There are amazing use cases that feature could be great for.
Yeah, Dev, stay tuned there. I think that's something we definitely want to dive into soon. MP says more on basic JavaScript would be amazing, even if it's just snippets of this is how do something in email form. Yeah, great call out. We did jump into a little JavaScript today, and yeah, that comment is definitely acknowledged. Something that I would like to learn more of myself too. So definitely can follow up with more stuff there. Okay, if anybody else has any last questions, go ahead and post them. Nuno, I wanted to get your quick thoughts here in the time we have remaining. I know we talked a lot on SMS today, from the pizza example to our meditation example. What do you recommend for other channels? Like, I know, what's your experience working with email, push, even talking about in-app messages is something that's on a lot of people's minds, but how do you recommend people use each one, especially if SMS, which we talked about today, is not something that people feel comfortable sending at this time to their user base?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've used pretty much every method Customerio has available, with the exception of in-app messages. It's somewhat new, but it's very, very powerful. I know the team back at Uphold was really waiting for that feature. But what we found is that emails would probably be the easiest to send, or you'd be tempted to send lots of them. Probably push notifications next, and then SMS is last. And I would actually invert that in terms of priority of which ones you should send the least. So you should send the least SMSs. Next to that would be pushes, and then emails. But yeah, in-app messages in particular, I was really excited to try that, and it's been great seeing the feature grow. Just being able to not even send a push notification when it's something, when it feels like kind of intrusive, trying to get them to buy something, and that maybe they don't want it. An in-app message is a great alternative because it's not as intrusive as push notifications, not as intrusive certainly as an SMS, which I would really recommend sending a very small amount of. Just it should be thought of almost as urgent communications, right? But for in-app, yeah, it's great. I would highly recommend trying that. It's a recent feature, but very powerful.
And what's cool about in-app is you really are confident. Like push, you maybe aren't fully confident that somebody is wanting to get that push right there on their top of their notifications in that exact moment, because they might not be thinking about your app. We've talked about send time optimization today, so we're trying to always perfect that. In-app, at least when you send that in-app message, you know that they are actively participating in your app because they've chosen to log in, they've chosen to do
Exactly.
something. Obviously, you still want to be cautious about not having the message sit well alongside the rest of the product experience, but at least they have chosen and told you, I'm ready to engage with your product in that moment. So
Yeah,
one little extra thing.
it definitely has its place, and each type of communication, you should really consider what type of message you're sending and how that fits in. Because maybe that Apple example, if you're trying to get somebody to buy your MacBook, sending an SMS is really intrusive. Why would you send an SMS to say, buy a MacBook today? Push notifications, you could do that certainly, but what's the chance that you're actually that somebody's thinking of buying a MacBook and they're and you sending them a push notification is actually going to work? It's much more likely that they'll get that push notification and go, oh, another one of these. So I would, for that type of campaign, just like a cold sell email would probably work best. Or like you say, the in-app guarantees that they're in your app. They've come to your app to do something. So possibly you're catching them at the right place. So I would recommend, if Apple's hearing me, if you work at Apple and you're here, don't send those emails trying to get you to buy a MacBook. In-app would work best.
Yeah, a little bigger buying decision there to act in the moment of a push notification. But Nuno, we're about at time, but thank you so much for walking us through detailed examples. I know when I come to these events, I'm kind of wanting to get into the details on how campaigns are built, what data is used, and even taking us into the JavaScript, which again, folks in the audience, if that made you a little nervous, we're happy to help. We're happy to follow up. So definitely reach out after this. We can help you get some of that set up. But thank you so much for being our guest on this event and bringing such good examples.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Cody. And thanks everyone for coming and enjoying a little bit of send time optimization with us.
Yeah, folks in the audience, thank you so much. And we'll see. We do these every 2 weeks, so we'll see you on the next one. And thank you for the suggestions there on what might be helpful going forward. All right, thanks, y'all.